And he said, like, this. You think this is John Wayne, but it's me. You think it's Elvis Presley? It's me. You think it's Annette Bening? It's me.
Meet Palle Bo, a digital nomad from Denmark on an epic journey around the world. At the age of 50, he made a bold decision. He sold everything, his house, his car, his furniture, and set out with a quest to visit every single country in the world, documenting everything along the way. This is the Radio Vagabond Podcast.
I am on the road. I've just started my 17-day road trip. Here from St. Louis, I'm going to Chicago, and you will probably say, how can that be 17 days? It's actually something you could do in less than a day. It's not that far up there, but I'm taking a big detour. I'm heading south instead of north. I'm going to Memphis. I'll be in Memphis tonight. But first, I'm heading west from St. Louis to a small town called Springfield. But I'm going to be driving around 2,000 miles, 3,000 kilometers, maybe more, on this trip. And when I say maybe more, it's because I will try to get away from the highway and onto the small roads too. Not so much today because I have a lot of driving today, and I want to make sure that I will be in Memphis at around 7 o'clock tonight. I'm staying with a couple on Couchsurfing, and I promised them that I'll be there at around 7 o'clock. So this is my first big American road trip, and this is the Radio Vagabond Podcast. This episode is brought to you in part by Hotels25.com. It's a website that helps you find the best prices on hotels around the world. Hotels25.com, it's best price guaranteed. Sorry I'm so late.
That's great. It's been good for us. I'm Tracy.
Hi Tracy, good to see you.
How do you pronounce your name?
Pelle.
Pelle.
Yeah.
Like Pelle.
A little bit like Pelé, the football player.
Yeah.
Pelle.
Right.
Pelle.
All right, cool.
So
yeah, cool. All right. Watch your head here. We had today to kind of work on some stuff. This is our dog Cooper. He will want to love on you when he'll bark. Are you afraid of dogs?
No.
Okay.
I've just been house sitting.
Gotcha. Okay, Cooper.
And
Come on in.
2 dogs have been sleeping with me.
Oh, so yeah.
When I arrived to my Couchsurfing hosts in Memphis, a wonderful couple called Maureen and Tracy. Maureen was preparing dinner. This was just. I'll have to give you that, Maureen. It was the best dinner I've had for a very, very long time. And wouldn't you agree, Tracy?
Oh my God.
Yeah.
It's so interesting to me that she likes to cook. I don't really understand that, but I'm happy for her and I'm happy for me. This is a win-win.
Yeah, because she likes to cook and you like to eat.
And I like to eat.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
exactly right.
Yeah, and we're surrounded by a dog and a cat.
And Griffin, yes.
Yeah.
Griffin, who wants to get on the table, she really does. But
Yeah.
she'll poke her head in here probably in a minute.
Yeah.
In the little nook.
I whipped out the microphone because you were going on about what I should see here. So can we just rewind just a few minutes?
Mm-hmm.
You said go to
Rock and Soul Museum. It's a museum. It's part of the Smithsonian, actually, or it's affiliated with the Smithsonian, although it's not free, like the Smithsonian's in D.C. And it's a museum that chronicles the movement of like kind of Mississippi Delta blues and gospel music into Memphis, kind of up from the Mississippi Delta into Memphis, and so kind of giving us a little bit of a sort of flavor of how Memphis music is the way it is and sort of where its roots are. And as I said, my favorite part about that museum is you can sit and listen to track after track after track of songs on
they line
5 or
up
6 different jukeboxes. Yeah, and so you can just sit there. I mean, I can't listen to all of it in one visit, and I've been there for 3 hours before, and I, can get through maybe a third of it.
A lot of great musicians in the rock and roll era comes out of Memphis. Ike Turner, Al Green, B.B. King, Carl Perkins, Isaac Hayes, Sam and Dave, Chuck Berry, and of course Elvis Presley. Most of them, if not all of them, recorded in the Sun Studios here in Memphis.
Where Elvis cut his first record, and then at some point after that, the $1 Million Quartet had a jam session and was recorded, and that's Johnny Cash, Elvis Presley, Carl Perkins, and Jerry Lee Lewis.
Wow.
So the Sun Studio is a really small place, still very active today.
Yeah.
People come from all over the country, or probably all over the world, to record there all weeks of the year. And in the top of Sun Studio is a museum, a small museum of Memphis music and Sun Studio, their history.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Sun Studio. How are y'all? Good. Okay, gang, well, I'm happy y'all are here. I'm happy to be here. My name's Lana. I'm going to be your tour guide. And before we get going, I just have a very important, serious question. Are you ready to rock and roll?
Oh, yeah.
Good.
What I love is that you get a live tour guide, and they're usually these hip, tattooed musicians who are, doing gigs in town or hoping to do that. Really enthusiastic.
Foundation of rock and
Roll!
Yeah. So he opens up a little shop. Woohoo! The Memphis Recording Service. Yay!
Wow.
Those are our special effects.
I love it. 50 style.
It's on the wrist, So this building's actually located right next door. It's 706 Union. Sammy takes out a 10-year lease at $75 a month, and he opens up with a great slogan. We record anything, anywhere, any
Place.
Evening shadows make me blue when each weary day is through. How I long to be.
All right, so Elvis is down in the studio. He's 18 years old. He's a little nervous. Marianne Keisker, she asks Elvis, she goes, "Well, son, who do you sound like?" And Elvis replies in that sweet southern drawl, "Well, ma'am, I don't sound like..."
Nobody.
Yeah. Perfect rock and roll grammar, too. I love it. So put it right on the... So there you go. What do you say? Pretty amazing, right? And Marianne, you can imagine, she loved it. She loved it so much she made Sam a copy, and she even wrote a sweet little note. It read, "Good balance."
And they give a good about a half hour tour of the upstairs, 45 minutes, and it's a small space. Like it's probably the size of two of our rooms, like our kitchen and our dining room. I would say that upstairs is all. And then you go down the stairs and into the recording studio where Elvis recorded, where all those folks recorded, and his microphone is still there. So you can actually take a picture singing,
Hold the microphone,
holding Elvis's microphone. It's really cool.
Yeah.
And the studio looks just like it used to look. It's just
everything
old,
is exactly the same.
On the radiovagabond.com, you can see me pretending to be singing into the microphone in Sun Studios, the very same microphone that Elvis was using. Around the corner from Sun Studios is Beal Street, the legendary Beal Street here in Memphis. This is where a lot of the music history was written. And then obviously I need to go to Graceland as well.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Absolutely. So Maureen knows a little bit more about Graceland than most Americans.
I was a tour guide in Graceland when I was
Really?
in high school. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know how much of my spiels I can remember, but yeah, I worked there Monday through Friday, my summer before college, the whole summer. It was a really cool place to work.
Was that when people were talking about he's still alive?
Oh, they still talk about that.
Oh, they still talk about that.
Yeah, they're still like, the whole Elvis
Yeah,
is
he-
alive.
Yeah,
Elvis.
he would be around 82 now. I think he was born in
1939
30,
or
I think 34. I think.
No, it wasn't. It was like either
No.
38 or 39. Yeah, it was not
Yeah,
1930.
Google that. Google that while we talk.
So I think, oh gosh, it wouldn't. So
But I
yeah,
saw
I think
pictures
it's
of him
80
behind the
or 40
windows.
fin. Yeah, right. He's hiding.
Oh, that was
behind the
just
curtains.
you.
Right, that was me. Sorry. He's hiding behind the curtains in the billiards room.
What about the aunt? What?
Oh yeah.
Didn't she have
So he had
an
an aunt. Well, one of his aunts still lived in the house when I worked there.
Oh.
So there were parts of the house that you could not access, even on the main floor. Nobody ever got to go upstairs. So like there was a bedroom suite and the kitchen that was not open for tours because it was still in use
Yeah.
because she was living there. And I'm not sure she really liked millions of people coming through her house every year.
While Maureen was talking, Tracy was Googling when Elvis was born. Remember that I said 1934 and the former tour guide said 1938 or 39?
1935.
Oh, who was closest?
Okay.
And you used to be a tour guide?
I know.
Didn't have to do that part.
Right. Wow. I really thought it was
My
38.
mom.
Okay, I came closest.
Yeah, see, I don't remember stuff from my spiel. Clearly. And the last room in the house that tours go through is the jungle room. It's the room where Elvis kind of has a little bit of an African theme.
Okay.
He's got a working waterfall in the room, and it was added on to the house. So the original back door is in the hallway that people walk through when they go on tours through the jungle room, and there was a sliding glass door to the right of the original back door, and so every once in a while his aunt would come through the jungle room because she wanted to go outside. She wanted to sit on the back porch. And one time in particular, I remember I was in there and there was no tour. So I was just kind of, loitering there, waiting for the next tour to come. It was kind of a slow day. And she walks out to walk through, and I said hello. But she obviously didn't hear me. And I think she had said hello or something. She didn't hear me reply, and she said, well, fine. Don't say hi. And I don't remember everything she said, but she yelled at me. And so every time I would hear her or the sliding door open, I would go and hide in the original back door little nook and try to not be seen because I just didn't want to interact with her. She was notoriously not nice. And I think she was just, had enough
Right.
of all these people.
Oh my gosh, can you imagine?
Graceland is located at 3764 Elvis Presley Boulevard in the vast Whitehaven community about 9 miles from downtown Memphis. It's now a museum and was opened to the public on June 7th, 1982. The site is declared a National Historical Landmark, and Graceland is the second most visited house in America with over 650,000 visitors a year, second only to the White House. Fun fact, I was married in Graceland Wedding Chapel in Las Vegas.
Really?
Awesome.
And he was there.
Oh,
Yeah.
Was he your?
He wasn't. He wasn't a priest. We had a priest called King, the King. But we had a wedding photo taken with Elvis behind us, with sidebars and golden rings. Another fun fact: I come from a small town in Denmark, 60,000 people, and we have a complete replica of Graceland.
Unbelievable. So interesting.
And at the moment they're building, or they're about to build, a copy of Sun Studios. So it's Memphis in my
That's so
hometown.
funny. Who's doing it? Is it an individual or the government?
It's an individual. He's an Elvis fan freak. He had an Elvis museum in town, and then at some point he said, I want to build a replica, and people thought, oh, you're crazy. Yeah, well, it's and then he actually found some investors, and he managed to build it, and it's now an Elvis museum, and they have rooms for restaurants and for weddings and stuff like that, and meetings and stuff, and it's going very well. People come from all over the world when they've been here, or if they can't afford to fly over here and they're in Europe and they're fans of Elvis, they come to, and in fact when they opened it, it was with the Presley family's blessing, so he named it Graceland, Randers, which is my hometown. But then shortly before they opened, they said, oh, you can't call it Graceland, it's a trademark. Mm-hmm. And he did it anyway because he already had brochures and everything, and the city built a road that they call Graceland Randers Road. But then it came to a lawsuit, and I think he settled it out of court, but he paid some money and he changed the name, so now it's called Memphis Mansion. But it's still on Graceland Randers Road, because that's the name that the city gave it, and they didn't sue the city, so... I purchased the experience tour.
All right, that's your ticket right on there.
So I don't need anything else.
Yeah, that's your ticket. They should be able to scan it over there.
So I just go to...
Right over here.
As I was about to go through security into Graceland, I was holding my microphone, and that caught the attention of the security guard.
It's a recording audio. I'm doing a radio podcast.
Did you check it in with someone?
No, should I do that?
Yeah, hold on, give me a second.
Yeah.
And he said, well, I'm not sure you can do that without a permit. Let me call the marketing director. And I said, great, please do.
So here's the deal. I got our marketing director. He's on his way up here. He's already up here, but he'll come around and talk to you. So we're going to make it work for you, all right? Yeah. It's all easy. Yeah. It's going to be all good. Give me about 5 minutes.
I thought, cool, I'll be speaking to the marketing director of Graceland, Memphis. And I was absolutely sure that he would be pleased that I wanted to make a piece for my podcast about Graceland. And maybe even show me something extra and say a few words on tape.
Gary, I want you to meet Tyler. This is Gary.
Hi, Gary.
Hi, how are you?
I am from Denmark.
Okay.
I travel around the world.
But when he came, he was not pleased.
The atmosphere.
Are you going to be interviewing people though, or just talking?
I don't think so, unless you wanted to say something.
No, not necessarily. I just wanted to.
He called me a journalist and said that I needed a special permit to record anything inside the area. I was confused. I couldn't, and frankly, still can't see what in the world could harm if you could hear a little bit of ambient sound from in there. And it did not help when I told him that I came from Randers, Denmark.
Yeah. The funny thing is that the small town in Denmark I live in, it's called Randers.
Yeah, I know about Randers.
Yeah, you know about Randers.
Yeah.
He just said, yeah, I know about Randers, and he does not like us very much.
He doesn't like us that much, I don't think.
Not anymore. He used to, Henrik.
Referring to Henrik Knudsen, the guy from my hometown that made a replica of Graceland in Randers, Denmark.
No, well,
We have a replica of Graceland.
Why in the world did I bring that up? And even say, we have a replica, as if I was a part of building the place, just before he was about to call the superior about recording sound in there. That did not help my chances of getting a permit.
Well, let me just make a call to see what we normally do on this. I mean, I want to make it. Usually, we have somebody with
So a few seconds later, he came back with a verdict.
So here's policy on that. You can, if you walk around this complex, you can record your thoughts. We don't allow it on the mansion side.
Here in the main lobby, you can record your thoughts, but not in there.
We just don't do it. So if you have a ticket that includes Elvis Presley's Memphis...
I was not allowed to record my thoughts when I was on the other side of the fence, in and around the mansion itself.
But like I said, I just want the atmosphere instead of me sitting in the studio.
No, I get it.
And then he said, and you can't take any pictures. I was even more confused and pointed at a sign right next to us where it says, pictures are okay, but no video.
No. Well, pictures, I didn't know that was even the request. There we're going to have to do a whole licensing agreement. Normal tourism.
The sign says I can take pictures, I said. Yeah, regular guests can, but you can't. You're press now.
You're press, as far as I'm concerned, right? You are media. We have rules for media. Okay? So if you want to
I think I managed to convince him that I was not representing some kind of big media. And I managed to convince him that it was only for personal use. So I took a lot of pictures, like everybody else, and you can see them on theradiovagabond.com. My hometown, Randers, is not the only place in the world with a copy of Graceland.
You may or may not know about Graceland 2.
Mm-hmm.
This is Maureen and Tracy again.
So, we have our own Henrik. Well, we did until about 3 years ago. So, a guy named Paul McLeod is like Henrik. He's he died, a big Elvis fan. Huge Elvis fan. He kind of looked like Elvis. He liked to think that he sang like Elvis. He kind of did. And he, in Holly Springs, Mississippi, which is about an hour south of here, took his antebellum home, which was in the middle of this small southern town, and tried to replicate Graceland.
He would put like facade up.
You had the lions, right?
The
you had the big lions.
Yeah.
And just like Henrik, he had rooms in it that had Elvis memorabilia in it. And if he were alive today, the three of us could get in my super cool minivan, and we could drive there, and we could each pay him $5. We could get there any time of the day, 24 hours a day. Paul stayed there in his house. He didn't leave. He had his food delivered in. And if we went there at 3 in the morning or 8 in the morning or 2 in the afternoon and knocked on his door in enough time, he would come open the door. I know this because I've been there 4 times or 5 times now.
She had her picture on the wall.
Right, I was a life member. I was a life member. And he would come, and then he'd give you a tour of the house. Now, in the first time I toured it, it was probably about 25 years ago, give or take. Okay, maybe 20 years ago. And he was less unusual than he ultimately was, but he was still very unusual.
Eccentric.
Yeah,
yes,
that's the word I was thinking of.
And he really did have some pretty good Elvis memorabilia, some records and stuff, and he kept this stuff in one room. But what he was doing, and I remember this at the time when VHS tapes were what we were recording with, he was recording anything in the world from any television station he could get that mentioned Elvis. So if Elvis was going to be mentioned, now this was after Elvis's death, right? If Elvis was going to be mentioned or talked about on Good Morning America, then he would have a recording of that. And he'd have a VHS tape, and then he'd have it logged. And he has a son. And his son's named Elvis Aaron Presley McLeod. And his son looked a lot like him, and he looked a little bit like Elvis. His son was my tour guide one of my first three times that I was there. And his son was charming and fairly normal. I mean, quite normal. And was in college, and I think was home for summer break or whatever. And I think eventually his son just left. It is a very unusual life experience to have. And so ultimately what Graceland 2 came to be over the next 20 or so years was Mr. McLeod giving a tour. And if you went in those previous years, you might have written a review of it in his guest book. Well, he would take that review and he would type it up on a sheet of paper.
Oh my God.
And then in pretty kind of big writing. And he would take that review and he would put it in a piece of plastic. And then he would put that on his ceiling or wherever he had space for it. And so literally, most surfaces in his home were covered, not really with Elvis stuff, but with any of our stuff. If you went 3 times, you became a life member, so then you didn't have to pay anymore. You get a little life member card with your name on it. And he would take a picture with you. You'd get to put on a leather jacket. Like I got a leather jacket to put on, and then he'd stand with you and you take this picture. So it went from this place where there really was some good memorabilia, which there still was, I think, in the very end, to this really weird place. So in the very last time we visited was only a couple years ago, and we went with family around Christmas, right? So How did he behave?
If you didn't seem to be paying attention to him, he would say, "Hey, hey," and he'd grab your arm
strongly,
really hard.
Yes, it would hurt.
Hey,
she's a peach. So,
and then, because he wanted you to be listening and paying attention.
But it was hard to listen and pay attention because his dentures
were loose.
Did that, and we couldn't understand a lot he said. And again, we're sympathetic and we get it, but it's it's hard to. And
there was the thing that we imitate. We do this quite regularly. Is like he was showing us some photographs, and the photographs were of him, but he was dressed up like other people. And he said, like, this you think this is John Wayne, but it's me. And like the way he said it was me.
Yeah.
And so that's what we did. You think it was you, but it was me.
Yeah. You think it's Elvis Presley, it was me. You think it's Annette Bening, it was me.
It's me. And it was just like he did that all the time, constantly. And then hey, trying to grab you, and then the thing that was the straw that broke the camel's back for me and Kate, our sister-in-law, was I don't even know where it came from. He might have had it in his pocket. It was this tiny little gun
he pulled out a
that he pulled out, and I don't know why he had it in his hand. I don't know if he was talking about it. I'd kind of zoned out at that point, and we were like, okay, well, we're gonna go now. We're like, we'll just go outside. We'll wait for you all to be finished.
Because they went out to the minivan.
Yeah, I don't want to be.
Yeah, you don't want to.
I don't know how stable he is anymore.
And especially not.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Right.
You thought you were alive, but you're dead.
This episode is brought to you in part by Hotels25.com. It's a website that helps you find the best prices on hotels around the world. Hotels25.com. It's best price guaranteed.
If you like this podcast, please subscribe in iTunes or the podcast app on your smartphone. You can see pictures, watch videos, and read much more on theradiovagabond.com. Pale can be reached for interviews and public speaking gigs on mail at theradiovagabond.com.
In the next episode of the Radio Vagabond podcast, I'll continue my chat with Maureen and Tracy, and my next Couchsurfing host will take me for a drive around the city, and we'll be talking a lot about the city and its problems. And then she tries to persuade me not to go to Alabama.
As a representative of my country, I'm already upset enough that we have an orange-tinged man baby coming around representing us. So why do you want to go to the land that represents him?
My name is Pelle Bo. See ya.
Why? Why do you want to do that?